Hi, we're going to talk today about the hazard management cycle. This is a continuous 4-stage cycle and it's pretty easy to sketch in an exam. It's simply 4 arrows with kind of 4 words on each one. So easy to do, it would only take a few seconds to draw. It contrasts to the more linear park disaster response curve. Now most typically we might apply our case studies to it. It's quite easy to be able to work a case study through this cycle. We could look at the pros and cons, which we'll do at the end, just in a few moments. We can compare it, of course, as well to other models which look at hazard management. So that would be the PAR model, the pressure and release model, and also the park model. This hazard management cycle points to governance being pretty key to the way in which hazard management happens and the quality of the hazard management. So let's begin. We start here in the preparation, the preparing section before the hazard happens. Okay, so number 1, here we go. This is about making people aware of how to react when disaster strikes. This is about the build-up. So emergency services being readied. This is about giving out information, giving out provisions, whatever it might be. This, of course, will vary quite a bit depending on whether we're thinking about a rich country, poor country, so HIC, high-income country, LIC, low-income country, and of course, across different types of natural hazard. So if we're talking about a tsunami, then it could be that a population has, say, 5 hours warning, and that would contrast in terms of the immediate preparation to perhaps an earthquake where we can't predict the earthquake, so therefore we might be thinking, well, at some point in the next decade, there's going to be probably quite a big earthquake in this place. Fine, so then the hazard strikes, and we move into the response section. Now the response section, as we can see here, is about short-term response really. This is going to be saving lives, this is going to be about evacuation, perhaps food and water provision, perhaps about shelter for people, and probably protecting property as well. Okay, so then we can look at recovery, which is essentially the long-term response. This is about cleanup, this is about rebuilding. And that's probably timescale. Whereas the timescale here is going to be days and possibly into weeks, the timescale for recovery is going to be months into years. Now the recovery section starts to merge into this blue, what I've coloured in blue here, and that's going to be key to the difference between the hazard management cycle and any other models we might be thinking of, because this is where we go from the after section into before the next event. So how you can turn the recovery into preparation. Now here, we've got some detail on that. So often used, the little buzz term would be the 3 Bs. So think the idea of building back better. And this would be thinking perhaps about earthquake-proof buildings. We've got Torre Mayor, which is in Mexico City, which was created after the Mexico earthquake of 1985. And perhaps the Transamerica Pyramid, another example we could think about, which was built in the 70s in San Francisco. Now, people, governance is going to involve then the review of policies, leading perhaps to change in the preparation in the days, years, possibly hours even before the next hazard strikes. Okay. So what you might get asked about when you're thinking about this in exam is, well, what's good and what's not so good about the hazard management cycle? So there's a couple of advantages highlighted on here. So let's start with this. First of all, the emphasis on preparation before, which can reduce losses once the hazard occurs. And that before perhaps isn't focused on in other models, like the park model, for example. Secondly, we can help to it can help in assessing how good hazard management has been, and it moves across here. It lays out what should have happened, what should happen in terms of the theory of it, and then that can be compared to reality, and they can go back afterwards and think, well, why wasn't the response and recovery as we wanted? Well, actually, we need to do this, this, and this differently. So they can then react and change for next time, leading us into this kind of circular pattern. And finally, one more thought would be that it reduces perhaps stress and anxiety within a population who know that this model is being looked at, where people are assured that hazard mitigation is happening and there is some real reflection on what happened and what will happen next time. In terms of disadvantages, there's a couple of thoughts there. So Perhaps this model is more applicable, has the most application to high income countries, rich countries who are wealthier, who can put time and resources into thinking about what's gone on, what's gone wrong. They can reflect in a deeper way, and then they can then spend money as they want to in terms of changing and mitigating, and then better preparation for next time. It's also perhaps criticised as being somewhat generic, somewhat unquantifiable. You could say it's an advantage though, because it means you can build in your example, your case study, so you can use it in your exam and you can talk through it. Thank you very much.